What a day. What a day. The Texas Longhorns stole the show yesterday at SEC Media Days in Atlanta. We'll recap everything that went down on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are Locked On to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember to leave a comment. That's one of the fastest ways to help us grow right here on Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So much to dive into on today's program. We've got some sound from Steve Sarkisian. We will talk about Arch Manning's day in Atlanta. But first, we have to talk about the mammoth recruiting day that Texas had. We did an emergency pod right after five-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson announced that he was committing to Texas on the Pat McAfee show. And we thought that was it. And, hey, that would have been a good enough day, right? You get a five-star before lunch. You feel like you're set for the rest of the day. Hell, you feel like you're set for the rest of the week. But Texas wasn't full. Around dinner time last night, the Longhorns picked up another commitment. This one came from four-star defensive lineman James Johnson, who was previously committed to Georgia. Philadelphia. So on the same day that Texas landed the top-ranked player in the state of Georgia for the class of 2026, the Longhorns flipped one of the top-ranked players who was previously committed to the University of Georgia. And oh yeah, they did that in the state of Georgia on the same day that Georgia was here at SEC Media Days. Coincidence? I think not. What a calculated sequence of badassery from Steve Sarkisian yesterday. You talk about sending a message. It's exactly what Texas did to Georgia. And Kirby Smart was walking around with a scowl on his face all day yesterday because of, I think, what had happened on the recruiting trail. The Atkinson commitment, we touched on this yesterday. That made it back-to-back years that Texas has gone into the Peach State and stolen the top-ranked player in Georgia. Last year, it was Justice Terry, the five-star D lineman. Oh, by the way, Georgia offered both Justice Terry and Tyler Atkinson when they were in the 8th grade. These were guys that Georgia really wanted and guys that Georgia really wanted for a long time. And the Horns were able to swoop in and snag them both. With Justice Terry, it happened in December, right around National Signing Day. And with Tyler Atkinson, it happens here in the month of July. So, yeah, big-time message sent by Texas yesterday. And it almost feels unheard of, doesn't it? You think about how well Kirby Smart has recruited Georgia. And you think about how many great defensive players that he's been able to sign during his Georgia tenure. For two five-star defensive players in his own backyard to pick Texas, that is absolutely insane. If it's a quarterback, you would understand it, right? A guy leaving Texas to go play for Steve Sarkisian and his system, that makes a little more sense. But for defensive guys to leave Kirby Smart, to leave the state of Georgia, to come to the University of Texas, that's wild. And it's perhaps a sign of a changing of the guard in the SEC. And look, NIL definitely helps make that possible. Don't get it twisted. Now, I will say this, Georgia has money too. They currently have the second-ranked recruiting class in the nation for 2026. If you think all of those guys committed for their love of the school or the culture at Georgia, and I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona that I can sell you right now. NIL giveth, NIL taketh away. Recently, it hasn't felt like the NIL game has been on Texas's side. This time, I think it was, and it played a big part in stealing Justice Terry from the Peach State last year, and I think it played a big part in Texas picking up a commitment from the five-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson yesterday. Speaking of messages, this is Texas sending another message that it isn't scared to go deep into SEC territory and play ball with some of the best recruits in America and play ball against some of the toughest teams to recruit against in America. It's awesome what the Longhorns are doing. Again, something we talked about yesterday. This is not just a Texas thing. This is not just a regional thing. Steve Sarkisian feels like he can poach players he wants from all over the country. He's not worried about competition. He feels like he's going to be able to get the guys that he wants year in and year out. That's awesome if you're a Longhorn fan. And I got to hunch you are if you've made it this far in today's episode. A little bit more on James Johnson. He's from the state of Florida. Again, was committed to Georgia since June, but plays his high school football in the Miami area. He is the top-ranked defensive lineman in the state of Florida in this cycle. He's the 69th ranked player overall. Very nice. A 5-star according to the folks at Rivals, a 4-star on the composite ranking, 6'2", 6'3", about 285 pounds. I found this scouting report online for James Johnson. Quote, explosive defensive tackle with all the fixings to make a living up front. More of a one-gap player than he is a two-gap player at this stage, but has the mass to dock in the middle, added almost 25 pounds to a frame that stretches just over 6'2" between his sophomore and junior seasons, and he should be able to eventually carry 300 pounds or more. He owns some of the best throwing metrics in the Sunshine State for his class, and that lower body twitch constantly shows up on tape as he shoots out of his stance and is quick to put opponents on their heels. Raw upper body strength allows him to club his way around obstacles, while a near 82-inch wingspan makes it difficult for blockers to establish initial hand positioning. He projects as a potential difference maker at the point of attack for a college football playoff contender that can be stationed at different spots across the line, end quote. I know that's a lot there, but it's a lot of good. So I felt like it was all worth reading. That will play for Texas. And man, you think about Georgia and what Kirby Smart has built. You think about what Nick Saban had during his dynastic run at Alabama. Those teams were built from the trenches. Those teams all had dominant defensive lines. It feels like Georgia has had a first-round pick on the defensive line every year that Kirby Smart has been in Athens. It kind of felt the same way when Nick Saban was in Tuscaloosa. That is what Texas is trying to build. And that's a good thing because look at what Georgia's been able to do under Kirby. Look what Alabama was able to do under Saban. We all want Texas to have that kind of success on the field in Austin. Hopefully it translates, but that's the recipe to win conference championships, to win national championships. You have to have those big bodies up front. You have to be able to win on both lines of scrimmage, and you are seeing Texas make a concerted effort to bring in defensive line talent. We saw it this offseason, 5 transfer portal additions on the defensive front. Heck, you saw it with the recruiting class of 2025, getting Justice Terry and Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma, 3 blue-chip guys, some of the best in the country. Stark's not hiding it. It is clear what he and this coaching staff are trying to build. And, man, look at what they've put together so far in 2026. They have 4 defensive linemen committed. And that's not including the 5-star edge rusher, Richard Wesley, who is also a part of this class. You've got Vodney Cleveland, the top-ranked D lineman from Alabama, Dylan Berryman, the 3rd-ranked D lineman from Louisiana, Corey Wells, the 3rd-ranked defensive lineman in the state of Mississippi, and then now James Johnson, the top-ranked defensive lineman from the Sunshine State. That will do. This is far and away the best defensive line class that anybody has right now in 2026. Texas is building a monster up front. And oh, by the way, the 5 transfer portal players they added, most of those guys have multiple years of eligibility. So you're going to have a lot of those guys beyond 2025. You're going to have the 2025 class going into year 2 next year. And then this talented group coming in as true freshmen in a year from now. Yeah, the present is bright, but the future incredibly bright for the Texas defensive line. And by the way, with the Atkinson commitment earlier in the day yesterday, Texas now has 3 players in the top 12 in the entire class committed. There's more than any other school. LSU, as a matter of fact, is the only team with 2 of the top 12 players committed. Texas has 3. So the Longhorns putting in work all over the country, but they're putting in a lot of work at the top of the recruiting rankings. And this class now ranks 7th in the nation. It was 13th at this time last week. Remember what I said? Basically did a whole episode on it. 3 little birds. That's the mindset you have to have with Texas recruiting. Don't worry about a thing. because every little thing is going to be all right. You believe me now? Texas isn't done. There may be some more very good news coming very soon. Trust in Sark, trust in his staff. They have proven time and time again that they know how to recruit at an elite level. Yesterday, they proved it again. What a day. Again, to do that in the state of Georgia, taking the number one player in the state and then another guy who was committed to Georgia, doing that on the same day when you are with Georgia at your conference's media days in Atlanta. Oh, man, it's a good villain arc right there by Texas. I'm telling you, calculated sequence of badassery, impressive stuff. And what a fun day yesterday was to be a Texas Longhorn fan. But it wasn't just recruiting. Yesterday was fun because, well, Texas was represented here in the ATL. We've got some sound from Steve Sarkisian. We've got some major takeaways from what Arch Manning, Michael Taft, and Anthony Hill had to say during their time in Atlanta. We will get to the Steve Sarkisian sound and some of my biggest takeaways from what the head coach of the Texas Longhorns had to say. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. The summer sports are in full swing. We've got major golf coming up later this week. Of course, the MLB All-Star Game yesterday. That means the second half of the season is about to start. You've got plenty of high-stakes soccer action going on. FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make things a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in the game while your friends are on vacation at the lake, at the pool, at the beach, whatever. You could be making tons of money with our friends at FanDuel. And the FanDuel app is so easy to use. You could place your bets. You could track your bets. It's all right there. And the beauty of FanDuel, you can bet in game as well. You don't have to get everything in before first pitch. You can wait until the bottom of the ninth inning. If you think you're about to see a walk-off, you can make it happen. You can make the call with our friends at FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Just like that. So open the FanDuel app today or head over to FanDuel.com to get started. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Yesterday was Texas Day here in Atlanta. And, oh, man, we'll get to the Steve Sarkisian press conference. We have some actual quotes and some actual bits of sound from Coach Sark, but how about the stunt that somebody pulled yesterday when they introduced Steve Sarkisian at the beginning of his presser? They said his name, and then they played the A&M fight song. You kidding me? Every coach gets that introduction, and they're supposed to play, the school that he coaches at's fight song. And I don't know if it was, Billy Lucci running around. I don't know if it was maybe a Georgia fan. We are here in Atlanta who was pissed that Texas had just gotten a commitment from Tyler Atkinson. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was intentional or not. It felt very Big 12. I thought the SEC was better than that. I didn't think they'd make a mistake like that. It felt like a Big 12 mistake yesterday. But hey, credit to Steve Sarkisian. He didn't even mention it. He didn't even acknowledge it. He went right into his opening statement once he took the stage. And the 30-minute or so press conference went off without another hitch. But come on, that's a dang coaching mistake. Bad bit right there from somebody with the SEC. I don't know if someone's losing their job. Maybe somebody should lose their job. That's one thing that it feels like you can't screw up. All right, the actual sound from Steve Sarkisian. Speaking of the opening statement, here is the end of Sark's opening statement. He kind of talked about, goals for the upcoming season, but also keys for Texas to achieve those goals here in 2025. Here's the head coach.
But I think the key for us this fall is we got to go enjoy this journey. We need to be present. We need to be present in the moment, enjoy the journey, and then ultimately finish the mission, right? We've been close. We've been there. We've been knocking on the door the last 2 years. But to go do that, we need to take it one step at a time as we embark on the summit that we're looking for. And that's going to take great discipline. It's going to take great commitment. It's going to take great toughness, mental and physical toughness that's needed. And it's going to take accountability for our actions and doing our job. And so I think we've got the culture in place to do that. We've got the connectivity on our roster. These guys have grown up together. I was thinking about Arch and Ant today. These guys don't know any different in college than playing for a conference championship and being in the college football playoff. That's what their experience in college has been so far. So it's going to take the resiliency, the confidence, and the belief, and it's going to take being at our best when our best is needed. And that's going to be late into December and into January if we want to accomplish the things that we think we're capable of accomplishing. So looking forward to it. Again, appreciate all that you do in supporting college football. And with that, we'll open it up.
You're welcome, Coach. Thank you for appreciating the work that I do and the work that the rest of the media does in covering college football. But no, I love that answer from Steve Sarkisian, right? Resiliency, commitment, and belief. Those are kind of the pillars that Texas needs to get over the semifinal hump and win a national championship. And look, they need to be playing their best ball at the best time of the year. That's what it's going to take, obviously. I mean, look, Texas won 2 college football playoff games. They were doing a lot right in the month of December, but when the calendar flipped to January, that Arizona State game was a lot closer than any of us wanted. Obviously, things didn't go super well in the semifinal against Ohio State. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of coach speak in there, but like Texas, they've been right there knocking on the doorstep. They got to be playing their best football in the biggest moments, because I do think Texas will be playing late into December and into January again this season. They've got to make those winning plays that they haven't been able to make in each of the last 2 years. All right, another one from Sark. Man, he got hit with a tough one right off the bat. The very first question, once he opened it up to the press that was in attendance here yesterday, was about the red zone offense. And someone literally brought up the 2nd and goal play call against Ohio State. You know, the infamous yet so famous toss sweep that went horrifically wrong for Texas and really led to the downfall of that possession and ultimately the downfall of Texas's season. Steve Sarkisian was asked about the red zone struggles that his team has had the past couple of seasons, and here's what he had to say.
That was a good start, man. Come on, get with jabs right there, right off the rip. Yeah, I mean, clearly, the last 2 years we've had the ball inside the 10-yard line to score, to either play for a national championship or tie a game to go play for a national title. So huge point of emphasis of ours. Every year as a staff, you look for areas of improvement and where you can improve your team. And as a coaching staff, that's clearly been an area for us where we want to improve and need to improve. I think that our staff has put forth the effort to do that. I think our players recognize that. Hopefully that we're good. Like I said, we need to be at our best when our best is needed. And those are 2 critical moments of the last 2 years where we needed our best and we just weren't quite at our best as coaches and or players. And so big point of emphasis of ours. Hopefully next year you ask me a different question. You say, since you got that resolved, what are you working on this year?
So there's Sark, and I love that answer from Steve Sarkisian, right? He acknowledged it. He acknowledged that it's been a problem. He realizes that each of the last 2 Texas seasons have ended because of red zone failure, and he talked about that being a point of emphasis this offseason, something that the coaches and the players absolutely have to get right. You can't be settling for 3 when you're playing teams like Ohio State and Georgia. You've got to find your way into the end zone. And, something like I didn't think Steve Sarkisian, I don't want to say took this issue seriously last year, but he got asked similar questions during the 2024 season. Hey, the red zone offensive numbers aren't that good. What's going on? How do we improve that? What are you guys doing? And Sark kind of downplayed it. He kind of poo-pooed the notion that Texas was a bad red zone offense, and he almost got testy at times during his press conferences when people would question Texas's lack of success in the red area. And, as a fan and a guy who covers the team, I'm like, how can you ignore that? Like, that's a big issue. It cost you against Washington in 2023, and it clearly hasn't been addressed here in 2024. I didn't love Sark's mindset, or at least the way he answered those questions. I'm sure he was putting in the work behind the scenes, but this is one of the few times where Sark has publicly acknowledged, like, no, that's a problem. That's something we absolutely need to work on. That's something that we have been working on, and it's going to be important because it's weird. Texas's red zone offense has gotten worse in every year that Steve Sarkisian has been at Texas. The best red zone offense the Longhorns had was in 2021 when the team went 5-7 and had the longest losing streak in a half a century. Since then, everything else has gotten better, but the offense inside the 20-yard line has gotten worse. You've had some bad memories, and I'm sorry to do this, but the goal line stand, against the Oklahoma defense in 2023, obviously the Ohio State game last year. I mean, there have been too many moments where just Texas hasn't been able to score when they've absolutely needed to score. And, Texas, the toss sweep play was a horrible call by Steve Sarkisian, but I think a lot of that was because he felt like his team couldn't pick up 1 yard. He felt like his team couldn't run it up the middle 4 times against Ohio State and score. That is a problem. That is something that has to change for Texas. So shout out to whoever asked that question yesterday, and to get a good answer by Steve Sarkisian. He said the right things, but actions speak louder than words. He's got to do the right things. I think Arch Manning and his dual threat ability is going to help Texas in the red area. I think getting C.J. Baxter back from injury is going to help as well. C.J. Baxter is listed at 230 right now on the Texas roster. That's more than 20 pounds heavier than any running back that Texas had last year. So you got a guy that you can hand the ball off to from the 1 or the 2 yard line who just falls forward and can get you into the end zone. That's a good thing. So I think there are things that you could point to in terms of personnel that lead you to believe that this Texas goal line and red zone offense will be improved this season. But obviously we have to see it because that's a negative trend for Texas. And one, considering all the talent that's on this team and considering how good of an offensive coach and play caller Sark is, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that issue persisted for multiple seasons. So we'll see if things get fixed. All right, there's some sound from Steve Sarkisian. We'll have more from him throughout the week here on Locked On Longhorns. But coming up next, a few more takeaways from SEC Media Days. What did Arch Manning, Anthony Hill, and Michael Taft have to say? We will recap the rest of the Longhorns Day in Atlanta coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. A few more thoughts on Texas Day. Really, it was Arch Manning Day in the ATL. There was a young Texas fan wearing an Arch jersey who got to the College Football Hall of Fame at 7 a.m. yesterday. Texas didn't get here until the afternoon. The kid stayed all day, and to Arch's credit, Arch rewarded him with a few pictures and an autograph. That's a pretty good ROI. The kid spent, 6-7 hours of his day, but to get an autographed jersey from Arch Manning, that's a good move right there for the young man. But, man, that was just, one of many signs of Arch Manning being the biggest deal here in Atlanta. The media scrum surrounding Arch at his breakout session was unlike anything that I've ever seen at a conference media days. Like, I almost felt bad for Anthony Hill and Michael Taft. All three of them had their breakout sessions at the same time, and they were all in separate corners of the same room. There was hardly anybody hanging out with Ant Hill and Michael Taft, which is wild considering they're both All-Americans, and Arch Manning has started 2 games, and he's going into his first year as a starter, but it doesn't surprise anybody. We know how this thing works by now. My biggest takeaway from Arch's time at Arch Day, which is what we're calling it, it's something that I kind of already knew. He is unbelievably humble. Like, unbelievably humble, considering how big of a deal he is and how much he's worth and how hyped up he's been pretty much from the moment he came out of the womb. Like, it is crazy that none of the fame has gotten to his head, like, at all. He wants to be a normal kid. He talks like a normal kid. He's not. Like, nobody treats him like he is, but he just wants to be a run-of-the-mill college football player. Literally his first words, the big Q&A that he had in front of an entire room of assembled press, the first words that he said, quote, "I feel like I'm a pretty normal guy," end quote. Somebody asked, like, hey, what's one thing that people don't know about you? And literally he said, "I feel like I'm a pretty normal guy." He added that he likes to hang out with his buddies and play golf. Normal college kid stuff. That's what I like to do in school. Wasn't very good at golf. Still not. But that's what Arch is trying to be. More on the humility. He was asked for his thoughts on the Heisman odds that currently have him as one of the favorites to win. He said, quote, "I don't know where they come up with this stuff. I've started 2 games," end quote. Like, that's real right there. Not a lot of players in that situation would give that kind of answer. He was asked for his thoughts on potentially being the number 1 pick in next year's NFL draft. He said, quote, "I'm really just worried about getting through this interview and then getting through our team run tomorrow," end quote. So he's not looking ahead to the future. He's not worried about the projections or the predictions or anything like that. He is focused on the here and now, and that's great news for Texas football. Maybe the least normal thing that Arch Manning is doing, he apparently has a $20 bet with a friend about giving up social media for a week. Not a bad idea if you're the quarterback at the University of Texas to not be on Twitter and Instagram all of the time. But like that's not easy for a college student to do in 2025. It's like the least normal college kid thing about Arch Manning himself. But again, he's the least normal college kid in America right now. But he does just say all the right things, man. He doesn't ramble. He doesn't get himself in trouble. Everybody was trying to get some sort of viral response from him. Oh, can we get him to say something like Texas is going to win the SEC or Texas is going to win the playoff, or hey, Sark made a mistake by not starting me over Quinn Ewers last year. It didn't happen, and it just doesn't happen. He's well trained, and he's been well trained for a long time. He's prepared for this moment, and he was a great representation for the University of Texas. So my big Arch Manning takeaway from Arch Day was he's just incredibly humble, man. And it was more of the same of what we've seen and heard from Arch from his first couple of seasons on the 40 acres. Last thing today, shout out to Michael Taft, man. An incredible story. Walk on to All-American. I mean, that's enough reason to root for him right there. We love these underdog types of stories in sports. But him showing up with a tie that had the initials of all of the campers and counselors at Camp Mystic who lost their lives in the horrific flooding back on the 4th of July. Like that's next level. That's a young man who just gets it. He was asked about the tie, and he called the counselors and directors who lost their lives trying to save the little girls. He called them heroes. He said he wants to shed some light on them, and he added that their story is way more important than anything happening here and anything going on in football. Like that's, again, a young man who just gets it. He was raised right. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Look, he earned his spot to represent his team with the way he's played on the field, but it's the kind of guy that Michael Taft is off the field that makes him such a great representation for the University of Texas. I think every Longhorn fan was a Michael Taft fan before yesterday. After yesterday, I think Michael Taft gained a ton more fans around the world. What a classy gesture for Michael Taft. On the field, we know how good he is. We know how important he's going to be to this Texas defense. It was huge that he announced that he was returning for one more season of college football. But, man, off the field, again, I think he gained a lot of fans with that move yesterday, and that's really cool, man, to use your platform and to use this moment for that. Awesome stuff, Michael Taft. Well done, young man. Well done. Anthony Hill, we'll talk more Anthony Hill tomorrow. I did have a one-on-one sit-down with Anthony Hill that we're going to post on this channel at some point this week, so definitely be on the lookout for that. But that's going to do it for today's show. If you made it this far, number one, thank you. Number two, please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, rate 5 stars, all of those great things. Make sure you turn those notifications on as well. We really do appreciate y'all making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings, so you can be the most informed fan on all of the rapid changes going on in college football. He's talking plenty of recruiting as well. You can find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. More takeaways from SEC Media Days, and I'm going to go around the room today and get some thoughts from some other folks, what they expect Texas to look like in 2025. So we'll have some insider coverage coming your way from right here in the ATL on tomorrow's show. But that's going to do it for today. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.